property taxes, homeowners insurance, interest rates are all just skyrocketing. But is it killing the future potential homeownership? Well, we're going to break down at least the first one here about property taxes, specifically in Colorado and the Denver area, because I get asked about it all the time, especially over the last couple of years. And there is a specific reason on why property taxes have all of a sudden gone haywire. And it has to do with the repealing of a specific amendment that actually came to fruition back in 2020, which balanced out property taxes between residential and business. And we're going to read an article here, kind of break it down. And you know what? I'm also going to put something into your heads, just addressing the elephant in the room about how expensive Colorado is and what property taxes are doing. Now, there's no doubt there were a lot of appraisals that I saw from this last year, specifically in 2023, that were wildly wrong about property values, and they should be fought. Those assessments should be pushed back on, and you should do your most as a homeowner to appeal those assessments that came in. But in general, folks, I think we're missing something big, and that's called perspective. Now, I'm from Chicago originally. Y'all probably know that. I moved out here 20 or so years ago, so I know I'm not a native, but heck, 80% of us aren't. Now, my mom is still back in Chicago, and a few years ago, we ended up moving her, and we started going through the real estate process and getting an appraisal done. Now, I've been in real estate since 2010 here in Denver. And so growing up in Chicago, I didn't pay attention to the 2007-8 crash. I didn't pay attention to anything like real estate prices or property taxes or anything like that. But man, when we went through this with my mom, knowing what I do now, I was absolutely floored with what I saw on property taxes. So let me break down a few things for you here, and let's see if you still think that Colorado property taxes are unfairly high. And for those of you who are new here, my name's Alex Saldana. I've been a local Denver real estate agent since 2010. We flip a lot of homes. We do a lot of home renovations. We work with a ton of buyers, ton of sellers in achieving their home goals. So if you have any questions, feel free, reach out, give me a call, shoot me a text message. I'd love to chat with you. So let's take a look at this article. So this article is on 7 News, and it was a common thing this year, and I heard it from a lot of my clients who had bought with me previously. We did a ton of appeals, and there was a lot of bad information out there, but I didn't know exactly why all of a sudden it seemed like things were crazy, right? Well, property prices have appreciated 50% in the last few years, and so, yeah, I just assumed that that was mostly part of it. But in reality, there was actually something called the Gallagher Amendment, and what it did was it split up what was owed property tax-wise amongst the entire state between residential and commercial. Well, what this does and breaks it down is just states that this historic bump in property values, okay? So not in the rate of property taxes. They're two different things. Your rate can stay the same, but if your property appreciates by 50%, you're going to pay 50% more in taxes. It just makes sense. It's not that the rate or percentage of your property taxes has actually increased. So what this Gallagher Amendment did, which was passed in 1982, was meant to be a way to keep residential property tax rates lower than the rates paid by non-residential property owners, such as businesses. The share of the state's overall property tax was split, with residential properties paying 45% of the share, while non-residential properties paid 55% of the share. As property values increased over the years, assessment values on residential properties have had to steadily decrease in order to maintain that balance. So, since 1982, with whatever property prices were doing, we got to a point where residential properties were assessed lower because of this amendment, meaning you were actually paying less in taxes because of this amendment. Okay, just let that sink in for a minute. They were assessing your property lower than what it should have assessed at to maintain this ratio on this amendment. Well, the reason homeowners have never experienced this before is because up until 2020, we had the Gallagher Amendment. And when Coloradans' residential home values went up, the assessment rate went down. And the business side, The non-commercial residential or the non-residential side would go up to compensate. When we got rid of the Gallagher Amendment in 2020, that meant that when residential home values go up, so too will residential property taxes. It's a very interesting breakdown of this. Now, what does that mean in the overall picture? Well, I think us in Colorado are missing a huge piece of information, and that is the perspective, right? What is it like in other states? Where does Colorado fall as far as property taxes are concerned? And first of all, I want to show you this list, okay? So this is a list of all states ranked by their percentage of property taxes. Forget about the column on the right for a second there. Forget about the average or median home price in those states, because eastern rural Colorado is still going to be extremely cheap. A couple $100,000 gets you a house with land, right? Denver, more expensive. Boulder, even more expensive. Aspen, even more expensive. You get the picture. So we can see on this list, as far as percentages go, we are the third cheapest state for the rate of property taxes. So what does this mean? Why is this important? Well, what this actually means, and why a lot of investors love the state of Colorado, is it means that the people who live here, me and you, right, are paying income taxes, which is paying for the infrastructure of the state, right? All of our electrical poles, our water lines, sewer lines, roads, all that good stuff, right? So now as we go down this list, we can see that our real estate tax rate is 0.51% of your assessed value, okay? Now, I'm not going to get into how the city or county assesses your value, because there's a whole lot of smoke and mirrors and magic tricks happening behind the scenes most of the time. And you know it if you own a house right now. If you think you can sell it for $600,000 and you're telling me that the county or city has assessed your property at $600,000, it'd be pretty shocking. Usually they're about 20% lower than what your actual value is. I know I'm telling the truth here now. People just like to bitch about having to pay high property taxes. So we're the third cheapest in the country for property taxes. So let's look at what the median price is right now in Denver, $565, which it's lower in certain areas, Englewood, Aurora, which make up a huge chunk of the Denver metro area. But $565, we're just going to play with that as the median home price right now. And we're going to just forget about the down payment and interest rates, even though those are crazy high right now too. We're going to look at just the property taxes, okay? So on a $565,000 home in the city of Denver, you will pay 0.51% of that value in property taxes if the city has assessed that that is what your home is worth, which most of the time it's going to be lower. So anyways, what that means is that your yearly taxes are going to be $2,800 here, okay? Or $240 a month. That's what we're bitching about, okay? I get it. It's another $2,900 a year, but what if you were to buy a $565,000 home in other states? Let's go pick on a few. Of course, there's California. They're at 0.76, which they were not nearly as high as I thought they would be with their kind of, MO. So you would be paying $4,300 a year. It doesn't, so 0.25% more. Doesn't sound like that much, but it's literally 50% more when you do the math. So they're going to be paying $358 a month or $4,300 a year. Let's go pick on someone else here. What's another fun state? Oh, lots of people are moving to Florida lately. So they're at 0.89%. So what does that look like on a $565,000 home? At 0.89%, you're going to be paying over $5,000 a year for a home in Florida at their property tax rate. Now let's pick on someone else here who we think a lot of people are moving to Texas. Wow, 1.8%. And if you're going to tell me that Texas is that much cheaper, that's a load of crap. The place that people are moving to are going to be Austin and Houston and Dallas for the most part. And their prices are not cheap, folks. So at 1.8%, this starts to really get up there. 1.8%. Eeks, $10,170 a year in property taxes, ladies and gentlemen. That is $848 a month. Let that sink in for a second. If you lived in Texas, you'd be paying on a $565,000 house over $10,000 a year in property taxes. And let's pick on my home state of Illinois, good old Cook County at 2.27%. Yikes. 2.27, $12,826. Oh my gosh. It's $1,000 a month in property taxes. Over $1,000 a month in property taxes just to live there. Your house was all paid off. 100%. You've been living there 30 years. You're going to be paying over $1,000 a month in property taxes if your house assesses at $565,000. In the overall big picture of things, we pay really low property taxes, people, to live in one of the best parts of the world. And if you don't live in Denver or in Colorado and you're thinking about moving here, I want you to watch this video about the city of Parker. It's one of my favorite suburbs around the Denver metro area. And once again, if you got any questions, feel free, reach out.